Recently, Ukraine has fallen into disaster. Many riots have occurred and the country has fallen. But what caused it? Today I will talk through the recent events leading up to today, the 23rd of March. Before, the government in Ukraine largely traded with Europe. However, last year President Yanukovych, under pressure from the Kremlin, decided to start trading with Russia instead of Europe. This led to thousands of people rioting. Soon enough, the protests became very violent. This means the president wants stronger ties with Russia rather than Europe, and the country was split on deciding whether to be part of Russia or Europe. After months of protests, people took control of the city centre. Ukraine's parliament decided to remove Mr. Yanukovych, and his main opposer, former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, was released from prison after being found guilty for leading the initial protest, saying the government was making a corrupt election. However, Mr. Yanukovych says he will remain in power. This is such a big deal, as Ukraine has many pipelines that funnel Russian natural gas to Europe. Russia's state gas company, Gazprom, supplies a quarter of Europe's gas, most of which flows via Ukraine. These protests are turning more and more into headline news as deaths have occurred, starting with the deaths of 2 people after the police used live ammunition on them. During the violent protests turning into a battle zone of civilian versus police and military, Russian forces have moved into Ukraine and are attempting to take control. Many think Vladimir Putin, the dictator president of Russia, is attempting to annex Crimea in Ukraine, as it is a strategic point, and thinks he believes that it is a part of Russia. Many other people believe Vladimir is trying to protect Crimea and cease the protest, as he believes again that Crimea is part of Russia. There are also many other ideas on why Russia is putting troops into Ukraine, but that will develop over the week. Here is a quick overview of events. 21st of November 2013. Government announces EU association agreement is being abandoned, prompting major protests in Kiev. 30th of November. Police launch brutal raid on protesters. Images spur protests, which grow during December. 17th of December. Russian President Vladimir Putin offers economic lifeline to Ukraine, with $15 billion of loans and cheaper gas supplies. Protesters see it as Moscow buying off President Yanukovych. 16th of January 2014. Parliament passes anti-protest laws, which opponents call draconian. Most of the laws later repealed. 19th to 20th of January. Intense clashes. 22nd of January. First protest deaths. 2 people die from gunshot wounds after clashes with police. Body of an activist found in forest days after his abduction. 23rd to 24th of January. Protesters seize government buildings in western Ukrainian cities. Protests also spread east. 28th of January. Prime Minister Mykola Azarov and his government resign. 14th to 16th of February. Under an amnesty deal, protesters vacate occupied government buildings and charges against those arrested dropped. 18th of February. Parliament Speaker rejects debate on changing constitution. Violent clashes erupt in Kiev, leaving many dead. 20th of February. Independence Square and nearby streets become a battlefield. At least 77 people are killed in a 48-hour period, and hundreds wounded in clashes between protesters and police, including many shot by uniformed snipers. This was the worst day in the protests. 21st of February. President Yanukovych signs compromise deal with opposition leaders. President Yanukovych disappears. Protesters then take control of presidential administration's buildings. Parliament then votes to remove President from power, with elections set for the 25th of May. Mr. Yanukovych then appears on TV to denounce his coup. His arch-rival, Yulia Tymoshenko, is freed then from jail. 23rd February. An arrest warrant is issued for Mr. Yanukovych. 27th to 28th February. Pro-Russian gunmen seize key buildings in the Crimean capital. Unidentified gunmen in combat uniforms appear outside Crimea's main airports. At his first news conference since fleeing to Russia, Mr. Yanukovych insists that he remains president. 1st of March. Russia's parliament approves Vladimir Putin's request to use force in Ukraine to protect Russian interests. Pro-Russian rallies are held in several Ukrainian cities outside Crimea, including the second biggest city, Kharkiv. Barack Obama tells Mr. Putin to pull forces back to bases. 2nd of March. Ukraine's interim PM, Yatsenyuk, says Russia has been effectively declared war. US says Russia is now in control of Crimea. 3rd of March, Black Monday. On Russian stock markets, reports suggest that Russia's military have issued a deadline for Ukrainian forces in Crimea to surrender. The reports are later denied. Russia's UN envoy says toppled President Yanukovych has asked the Russian president in writing for use of force. 7th of March. Russia says it will support Crimea if the region votes to leave Ukraine. Russia's state gas company Gazprom warns Kiev that its gas supply might soon be cut off. Ukraine sends just one athlete to the opening ceremony of the Paralympic Games in Sochi. 10th of March. Armed men seize a military hospital in the capital. 12th of March. Barack Obama pledges to stand with Ukraine during a meeting with the interim Prime Minister Arazani Yatsenyuk at the White House. 16th of March. Official results from Crimea's cession referendum says 97% of voters back a proposal to join Russia. 19th of March. Ukraine starts drawing up plans to withdraw its soldiers and their families from Crimea after pro-Russian forces seize 2 naval bases and detain a Ukrainian Navy chief in an unknown location. Ukraine also decides to leave Moscow-led Commonwealth of Independent States.